We are so excited for you to join our love-driven video series. Be prepared to be impacted and transformed so that you can impact others. My name is Danielle Reyes. I'm a proud co-founder of Lions Pride Leadership, and today I'm excited to interview my husband, Chad Reyes. We will be discussing Intentionally Build 2020.
And I'm excited about discussing that because that's something that's close to my heart. I like being intentional.
I know you do. One of the big questions many have been asking is, how do you prepare for the upcoming year?
So one of the things I think is really important when we're preparing for the upcoming year is we have to be intentional with blocking out time. You know, I think often what happens is that we expect the year to be different just by showing up. But really doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome is the definition of insanity, right? So I think if we're going to build intentionally 2020, we have to be intentional with putting time away and blocking out time to actually do that. So one of the things I always talk about, and you know this, is blocking out. I block out somewhere between 6 to 8 days in the end of the year, and where most people say, well, that's such a waste of time, you're planning, you could be out producing and doing other things, and I look at it and say, no, this is the most effective time I can do. Right. Because what it does is when I plan for those 6 to 8 days, as I plan for 2020, as you know, it allows us to be more intentional in that year, so that when we're doing things, we're not trying and just throwing as much up against the wall hoping some of it sticks. We're being very intentional, and a lot of people laugh at me often because I say laser focus, but I really mean that, because laser light cuts through steel. Diffuse light is like a light bulb. It doesn't have the impact to cut through something or to go really directly through it. So I think when we're building intentionally a 2020, we need to have that level of focus. We need to have that level of discipline. I've said it so many times that you can out-discipline your competition. I would rather have someone who has lower amount of talent and a high level of discipline than someone who has a high level of talent and low level of discipline. And I think when we're looking at building an intentional 2020, if we have high level of talent and we have a high level of discipline, and we can merge the two, I think it becomes really powerful of what's possible for that upcoming year.
Well, I could just say that I'm grateful for this morning, because this was in our calendar, and it was not something I think any of us really wanted to do, but because it was set, that discipline came along for the whole team, and here we are.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. That leads us into the next question too. I believe it's very valuable for people to know, how do you prepare your mindset for the hours that's needed to put in for the planning of 2020 or for the next year?
So when we're coming up to intentionally building 2020, the first thing is we have to have control over ourselves. The hardest part in business is us. It's not doing the business, it's not getting the business, it's not managing the teams, it's managing me. And if I can't manage me, how am I going to manage anything else? So the first thing I would say to those that are watching this video is figure out why you when you say something, when you give your word to something, you don't fulfill it. Because when that occurs, then I believe there's a lack of character or a lack of integrity there. So part of building an intentional 2020 is looking at it and saying, okay, if I say I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. So one of the things, planning out 6 to 8 days for the end of the year, at the end of this year, for the upcoming year, one of the things that's so important is, if I say I'm going to do it, then I just got to do it. And I think for business people in general, I mean, I've seen it. You and I have been in business now almost 20 years. What is it, 17 or 18 years?
I keep getting older.
Yeah. And when I look at why most people can't accomplish what they want to accomplish, it really comes down to self-discipline. It comes down to them wanting to do something but not doing it. So I think in 2020, as people start preparing for this new year, is if you're going to block out the time and get it done. And it'll give you a higher probability. And like I said earlier, that most people think talent is the most important thing. And I would totally go against that. I think in 2020, as we're planning and as we're going through what we want to accomplish, I think you could have less talent. And now I like the word and. I think the word and is so much more important than the word or, because I'm saying one or the other right now, but I really believe that organizations that thrive have both. They have talent and discipline. But if you only had to choose one, I would say that it would have to be discipline over talent. Right. Now, I don't believe in that. I believe our organizations, I believe you and I, and the people on our team have both. They have talent and discipline. But in this new year, in this upcoming year, for organizations to be successful, for them to intentionally build, they got to have the discipline to do it. Right. They have to be able to say, when I'm blocking out that time, I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up today. I love that you were being authentic and real about it. Before we jumped on to record this show, we had a tremendous amount of things that happened. So many things that should have said we shouldn't have recorded this. Right. But we were intentional to be there.
I think we actually even said it, but then took it back.
Yeah.
Right after we said it. Actually, rolling into that, there is things that happen as you set. So many people will set, like we set time, but then things do come in, and they come from all over. Like anything to distract us is the key word to moving forward in the hours that we're planning. So discipline, that's really where the word discipline comes in, because you got to know how to navigate that and still accomplish what you need to accomplish, or cut out the noise, for lack of a better word, around you, so that you could focus. And that actually goes into my next question too. What keeps you focused when those things come in around?
So for me, fulfilling the purpose. I'm a purpose-driven person, as you know. We've been together for many years.
Keep calling out numbers.
But it's purpose, because when your problem, I'll give you an example for those that are watching. When your problem is this big, but your purpose is this big, you can always see your purpose through the problem. So most people make their problem bigger than their purpose. And when you do this, you can't see your purpose because the problem's so big. You see, one of the things that helps me is that when problems come, when they do, there's no doubt that there are problems that we all experience. But when the problem comes, I stay focused on the purpose. And when the problem gets bigger, I just make the purpose bigger. And in 2020, if you're not intentional with building and accomplishing what you want for that year, the problems are going to be there. One of the things that we talk about all the time is we talk about rocks, right? And for those of you that are listening, I think this will be tremendously impactful. We talk about rocks, and what rocks are picture you go down to the beach and you have a bucket. And, this bucket is a 5-gallon bucket. You take 5 or 6, 7 nice sized rocks, you put it in the bucket. Then you take some pebbles and you fill around the rocks. Then you take sand and you fill around the pebbles and the rocks. And then you think that you've reached capacity until you take water and throw the water into the bucket. And all of a sudden you have 1 gallon, 2 gallons of water, and it's filling up the whole bucket. You see, the water, the sand, and the pebbles, those are the things in business that have to get done regardless. But the rocks are the things that you want to accomplish. And if you're not intentional in 2020, you'll find yourself doing all the things that needed to get done, the day-to-day payroll, putting out fires, but never actually moving the ball forward, never actually accomplishing in your personal and professional life the things that you want to accomplish, because intentionality requires that you put those rocks as center, as an importance. It doesn't mean that you put everything else to the side. It means I'm gonna accomplish these rocks and the other things.
That makes me want to go into being active and being productive.
Yeah, a huge difference. Huge difference. You know, most of the people that I see, most business leaders, most families, when I observe from the outside, I see it. They definitely are very active. There's a tremendous amount of time that they're spending, tremendous amount of things that they're doing. But just because you're active doesn't mean that you're intentional. Doesn't mean that you're moving the ball forward. It doesn't mean that you're reaching the people that you should be reaching.
Doesn't mean you're being productive.
Yeah.
Which is key.
Totally different. Yeah.
So can you speak on that for a minute? What is the difference between being active and being productive in those rocks?
Yeah,
rocks versus the sand in the water.
Yeah, so many of the viewers probably have heard me say this before, but I say often that when we want to accomplish something, we need to take a big picture for the year. So if we want to be intentional for 2020, picture this: you take 2020. And you have all the different goals. These are financial goals. These are, we look at them in 5 areas: financial, intellectual, social, human, and spiritual. So these are the 5 areas that I want to continue to improve on a year-to-year basis. And then I break that down into how do I do that on a month-to-month basis? Because one of the things that you and I always talk about is if you want to win for the year, then you need to win on a month-to-month basis. If you want to win on a month-to-month basis, then you need to win on a week-to-week basis. If you want to win every week and you have 52 great weeks, well, that'll turn into a great year. But if you really want to have a great week, then you need 7 great days. And if you need 7 great days, you need 7 great 24-hour periods of time.
Right.
So really, being intentional with your year requires that you literally have great days that turn into great weeks, that turn into great months, that turn into great years.
Right.
Yeah.
That was great.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that's the end of our love-driven video series. We hope you enjoyed it. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's really it. In wrapping, I would say this is that John Maxwell says one thing that really impacted me tremendously. He said this. He said, good intentions and being intentionally good are totally 2 different worlds. As you plan for this year, as you plan for 2020, I'm going to encourage you that to put your good intentions aside, because most of the world has good intentions. That's the reason why most New Year's resolutions by January 15th or the end of January are no longer even being followed. That's good intentions. This year, I'm encouraging you to be intentionally good. Intentionally good is that you put what you want to accomplish and then you move forward. And one last example before we wrap up for this video series is this. Most people blindfold themselves, spin themselves around, and try to pin the tail on the donkey. We've all done that when we were kids. We get blindfolded, we spin around, we try to find pin the tail on the donkey, and then we put it right over here. So when we hit it right here, what most people do is then they draw a bullseye around it and say, that's where I was shooting for. That's good intentions. Intentionally good says this. This is where I want, and how do we get there? In 2020, I'm encouraging you, be intentionally good. Make this the best year you've ever had. And I'd love to hear your stories. Write to us, email us, share on our social medias. But I'd love to hear the impact that you're making this year, the success you're going to have, the fulfillment and joy you're going to have with everything you're doing. So we encourage you. We're glad to spend the time with you, and we wish that 2020 will be your best year yet. God bless you.